Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
What up, Subway Sports Talk? Pete Kennedy here of Subway Sports Talk. Said that twice now. Here you go. What's up? Pat Boyle also here. Apple Podcast app, Spotify, and on YouTube. We're here to talk about the NFL. If you didn't hear our Knicks talk and you're on YouTube right now, head over back to the Knicks video to hear some fantastic Knicks talk while they're on the 8-game win streak. But we also had week 15 in the books. Pat, week 15, what a wild ride that was. I don't even know. There's a million places to start, but basically, what the hell? What the hell was that? What a weird week 15, man.
Dude, I mean, just whenever you think it's over, it's the closest fucking thing from being over. And as bad of a product as some of these primetime games have been this year, I mean, my goodness, man, have we been treated to just some mind-blowing, absurd finishes?
Oh,
Saturday, 33-0, Jeff Saturday. I mean, is there any more surefire way to make sure that you're not a permanent NFL head coach going forward? The Vikings come all the way back, win that one. Bills down, 29-21 in the fourth quarter. And then they all of a sudden turn on the switch, which, by the way, we do have to talk a little Tua. I know Chris Muley is going to be listening.
Of course.
He sent me a Tua meme. My text messages, even in the loss, that felt like a really as close to a win, I think, as you could have for the Miami Dolphins. And then, the Jets blow a late one, right? The Cowboys blow a 17-point lead. The Chiefs go to overtime with the Texans, and Houston had a chance. They had the ball. All they would have needed was a field goal. And, of course, Davis Mills coughs up the pill. The Patriots, and the dumbest finish you'll ever see in your entire life. I mean, my goodness, man. And the Buccaneers going up 17-0 and still losing by double digits. I mean, dude, let's get into it because week 15 was a hell of a ride.
It was a hell of a ride, and I'm sorry to even do this to you, Pat. To anyone listening on YouTube here, I just pulled up the week 15 picks for you, myself, and Mark Shanlugan. I'll start with the positives. I was 3-1-1. My only push was the Chargers -3, which is my second push of the year, Pat, both on Chargers -3. How's that? And then I also lost on the Panthers versus Steelers. The Steelers won that one. Mark Shanlugan and I both benefited from that ridiculous ending in the Raiders game. Obviously, they would have had a chance to win in overtime, but what a gift that one was. Mark 3-2, and Pat, I'm sorry, you joined it. You joined the club that no one wants to join with the 0-5 week. I apologize to bring this news to you.
Dude, I am Les Snead from now on when it comes to the NFL picks. Fuck them picks.
Bro, I mean,
that's how I'm treating them from now on.
I almost wanted to give you like a mea culpa on the Jets pick, because if you listen to our picks podcast last week, part of your reasoning on backing the Jets, like any normal human being, was because Mike White was going to be playing quarterback. Now it turns out we're another week ahead, and he's still not going to be playing quarterback on Thursday night against the Jaguars. We'll get to that in a little while. But you wouldn't have made that pick if Zach Wilson was the quarterback. You wouldn't have. And
Absolutely not. I would have taken the Lions.
Right. You may or may have not made the Lions one of your picks, but you definitely wouldn't have had the Jets. So I almost wanted to give you like a mea culpa on that, but you didn't ask for it. It is what it is. You're going to wear this one on the chin. Some of these other ones, though, dude, I mean, I can't believe it with the Chiefs, too, especially because you and Mark had your little back and forth about that. And then they win by 6 in overtime when you had a -6.5. And then, honestly, perhaps the most frustrating one could be the Buccaneers, who were up by 17 points. At one point, you had a 24-point lead from a spread perspective, and they did not cover, and did not cover even by like a good bit.
It's embarrassing. They turned the ball over 4 times in 15 offensive plays. 4 times in one quarter. We're gonna talk about Tom Brady in a little bit. If we talk about quarterbacks that need to prove it the most coming up this weekend, he's one of them. And holy shit, man. I mean, there has been times where I feel like we've dodged throwing the pitchforks and the fire at Tom Brady this year as much as we've tried. I said when they lost to the Panthers a couple weeks back, 21-3, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. That was the worst quarter I've ever seen Tom Brady play, that third quarter against the Cincinnati Bengals. He looked absolutely lost. I mean, he looked the furthest thing from a guy that has won 7 Super Bowl rings. So I was in disbelief watching that on Red Zone, and Scott and Hansen keeps going back to that game like literally every 90 seconds. Another turnover, another one. So yeah, that the Vikings -4. I mean, a miracle that they even win the game, but you know, I
Right. You chalk that one up as a loss, like in the second quarter.
and then I know a lot of DC fans are salty as hell about the officiating.
Right.
Giants got some calls that didn't go their way, but I mean those last two plays, dude. Brian Robinson runs it in. Terry McLaurin asking the ref if he's okay. The ref looks like he points there. He moves up a foot, gives him another thumb up. Guy throws a flag anyway. And I don't know how the fuck you don't call pass interference on Darnay Holmes, who was, I mean, bear hugging. Bear hugging. Who was it? Dotson? It wasn't McLaurin. It was either Dotson or Sims on that last play, and just
Right.
no flag. So
Here's Dotson.
I knew it was going to be the under, and maybe that's a spot where I said just give me the under,
Right.
straight up. But I thought with how bad the Giants defense had been lately and how banged up the secondary was, that Heinecke would be able to take advantage of it. He's another guy we're going to talk about because I don't know how off a bye week playing the same team twice you only put up 12 points. So
Yeah, that was bad. It looked
fuck
like the
them picks.
fuck them picks. It looked like the Giants were the team that was off a bye, right? Like it looked like they were the ones who had some juice. And again, we're going to get more into all these games. That's just a little mini recap of our picks there. And it's got to be a little frustrating for you, Pat, because you have utilized the Giants in so many teaser legs this year to great success too, right? Like you've hit the Giants on teaser legs a bunch this year, and then you went against them. You said you were fading the Giants, did not land, but that's all right. Listen, you don't lose when you lose some picks. You lose when you give up. So we'll be back this week with more picks because fuck them picks. Anyways, our plan here today with the NFL talk is to basically look at the upcoming games in week 16 and generally with the playoffs starting to shape out. And we're going to look at some of these teams that are on their last legs that what was the term you used, Pat, in the text you sent me earlier today?
We left them for dead.
Left for dead. Teams that are left for dead if they don't get it done this week. There's a number of those teams that are going into, you know, Bill Simmons uses the term loser leaves town matchups. Sometimes some of these matchups are not where no matter who loses, they're both out. But some of these teams really need to win now, or else it's legitimately over. Even with wins, some of their outlooks are a little bit bleak. So we're going to talk about some of those teams. And then there are a number of quarterbacks that we want to talk about that still have a lot to prove this year and have a lot to play for. So we got all that stuff to talk about. But Pat, can we start on the Thursday night since we're recording this on Tuesday? There's 2 days before the Jets and Jaguars take place on Thursday night on Amazon. Zach Wilson's the quarterback. And I got to say this. I know you've obviously been on the Mike White train. Mark Shenlugan's not here to be a psychopath and go so hard against that take. So the one thing I will have to say, Robert Saleh seemed absolutely defeated today, saying that Mike White would not be cleared. I was at the game on Sunday in MetLife where the Jets faced the Lions, and they had their chances. They had opportunities, didn't quite get going. They had their big moments. Zach Wilson threw a big play, broke in, and whatever. They scored a touchdown. There was no juice on offense, though. How does this team respond? How does this team get their best foot forward on Thursday, if you think it's possible at all, with the defeated sound in their head coach's voice that their quarterback, Mike White, will still not be cleared?
They're going to have to rely on the defense, man. And I heard a lot of takes, and I got to call him out. Our buddy Sean Marash, who has the Giants podcast, and he's a producer for DA Show on CBS Sports Radio. He hosted going into the Giants game on the Fan on Sunday, and he went contrarian in my opinion, where he knew everybody wanted to crush Zach Wilson, and Zach played bad, but he wasn't horrendous. Like I think a lot of people, myself, were expecting. Threw for 300 yards, but he still missed
He wasn't
plenty.
a disaster.
He wasn't a disaster, but he still missed plenty of throws. And of course, our guy Sean goes, "Oh well, that's the defense's fault. That is, I keep hearing this is a Super Bowl defense, and they can't close out the game." The Jets defense gave up 13 points. They gave up 13 points, right? The Lions ran a punt back. The Jets defense didn't give up a touchdown the entire day. until the final Lions drive, and it's 4th and inches. And yeah, they run a fucking little rub route across the middle for Brock Wright, the third string tight end, and somebody doesn't stick to their assignment and cover him. Okay, should he have been tackled even after he's running for 30 yards? Yes, he should have, but that is not on the Jets defense, who gave up 1 touchdown all day and 13 points. So Zach, they've got to rely on this defense because they are top 5 in yards allowed per game. They are top 5 in scoring per game on the defensive side. That's how they're going to win this game on Thursday. And the Jets 7-7 that have now lost 3 in a row feels miles away from a 6-8 Jaguars team that has kind of been playing really well now outside of a crushing defeat to the Detroit Lions a couple of weeks back. And Trevor Lawrence, you're going to see number 1 in last year in 2021 draft versus number 2. Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson. This matchup going into this year, I think a lot of people were saying, you look forward to this game all the way to Thursday night. I don't think you were expecting these teams to be in playoff hunts, and the Jaguars are very on the outside looking in right now. But you were saying, okay, this is going to be Trevor versus Zach, 1 versus 2. Let's see who's the better QB. And I mean, that couldn't be further from what we're looking at this game now as, where the Jets were 7-4, and the quarterback is now Mike White, versus the Jaguars, who are 6-8, but they know that Trevor Lawrence is their quarterback. They've put up 76 points in the last 2 weeks. Trevor Lawrence has 11 touchdowns to 1 pick in the last 4 games. He is playing like a franchise quarterback. So it's on the Jets defense to go out and stop him. They're hoping to get Quinnen Williams back. That would be huge because they barely pressured Jared Goff and the Lions all day on Sunday. And then the weather is once again going to be a huge factor. I'm looking ahead already. Thursday, East Rutherford. Potential for heavy rainfall all night. Chance of rain 100%. Rainfall may reach 1 inch. So it's going to be a monsoon, most likely at MetLife Stadium, with 18-mile-an-hour winds. This is once again a game that I think is lining up in the Jets' favor in that regard, because what do? You get to the run game, right? Trevor Lawrence probably, with the weather, isn't going to be able to throw the ball as efficiently as he has been the last couple of weeks. So if the Jets can run the ball and limit the big plays on defense, which again, with the weather and with how good they've been, they should be able to do, the Jets can win this game. But again, the Jets could have won the game on Sunday, and they only put up 17 points once again. So this game's going to be up in the air. The weather's going to be a big factor, but it feels like if the Jets lose this game on Thursday, they're toast.
Yeah, they're toast because that's just an insurmountable lead that the Chargers and the Dolphins and who knows what the Patriots will do. And then the Jaguars even have the tiebreak over the Jets if they win that game. So 100%. And I find it interesting, Pat, the line opened up in the Jets' favor again, and that was probably still, up in the air about who was going to be the quarterback, but it was -1.5 in the Jets' favor, Mike White or Zach Wilson. When that changed, it only dropped 1.5. And I think what is keeping it right now at a pick 'em that I'm seeing here is the weather, is that favors the Jets. And I remember being, in the parking lot, we're all hanging out, we're having our drinks and whatnot. People are saying, oh man, Zach Wilson, I can't believe this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? The Zach Wilson thing, it stings, right? You want Mike White to be playing quarterback right now, but I truly believe that the Quinnen Williams loss is actually a bigger loss for the New York Jets than the quarterback situation right now. And that's not even a knock on Mike White, or it's not even a praise of Zach Wilson. It is truly just a praise of Quinnen Williams and the effect that he has on opposing offenses. That dude is an absolute savage, and he is probably more important than who's playing quarterback for the New York Jets right now. And you can't say that about many players in the NFL, and you definitely can't say it about many interior defensive linemen for that matter.
No, absolutely. I mean, 11 sacks as a guy, as a nose tackle. I mean, he has been, everything they hoped he would be when they drafted him a couple years ago. Now in his 4th season, he showed you glimpses of it the last 2 years. 7 sacks in 2020, 6 sacks last year. He's been able to stay healthy for most of his career. He's only missed a handful of games. And then this year, 11 sacks. And that injury just came at a really, really bad time because he's the anchor of that defensive line. He stops the run, he clogs things up in the middle, and then he's able to just bull rush guys and get to the quarterback. And they do a lot of things with being able to move him along the defensive line. So, look, he's a game time decision right now. I'm not optimistic he plays. I feel like whenever a guy says their game time decision this year, they have not played. Strained calf. I mean, look, I have no idea what it's looking like and what he feels like, but if they get him back and he can play and he's 100%, that's awesome. Because again, they barely got any pressures on Goff on Sunday. And the
Yeah.
one thing that Trevor Lawrence has been susceptible to is get under pressure and the blitz. So if they can get him under pressure, man, I mean, look, that plays right into the Jets' favor. But you're right. Quinnen Williams is right now, when you look at Mike White versus Zach Wilson, it's Quinnen Williams is playing a bigger factor. And then, again, just really quickly here, the thing with Zach is the way that he has been just totally disrespected by New York media and even now national media. It got to the tipping point where now
Right.
everybody
Went too far.
where I think it was Alex Smith said on Monday Night Football going, the countdown preview where he's like, oh, well, where's the blame for Robert Saleh because they have failed this kid. Have they failed him? Have they failed Zach Wilson? Look, Robert Saleh, he deserves to get crushed for his horrendous clock mismanagement on Sunday, thinking that maybe he thought he could bring the timeouts into Thursday and bring them home for his kids. Not calling the timeouts there with under a minute left to go and thinking that, oh, we didn't want to, get the wrong call of a challenge. Well, dude, just run up to the fucking line and spike the ball then. And that way that you've already run another play
Right.
and you still can stop the clock rather than 19 seconds tick off. But one thing that Robert Saleh doesn't deserve to get crushed for is the way, and him and Joe Douglas, all they have done to support Zach Wilson. The draft last year, they drafted the first 4 rounds, all offensive guys, drafting the running back Michael Carter, drafting Garrett Wilson, drafting Elijah Moore, signing Tyler Conklin, signing CJ Uzama, drafting Elijah Vera Tucker. I mean, they have essentially gone out of their way to only draft offensive players. And the crazy thing about it is that the last year, the defense went from one of the worst historically in the league to now one of the best in the league, which is, again, they outside of drafting Sauce Gardner, they didn't do a ton in terms of drafting guys. Bringing in Quan Alexander's been big. DJ Reed's been big. But, again, when it comes to what they've done, they have not failed Zach Wilson. It is just flat out apparent that he is not the guy. I said it on the fan. I'll say it again. Maybe he can have a career somewhere else in some other system. But him and Mike LaFleur don't mesh. I mean, for God's sakes, they got the kid a quarterback coach to be on the sideline with him so Mike LaFleur could finally go in the booth and play and call plays and have a bird's eye view. They have done more than enough to try to support this kid. And his future, it's never going to be here in New York. It never will. I would trade him on day one of free agency if I'm the Jets. I don't know if they will. I think Joe Douglas at the same time is trying to hold on to the fact that they drafted him number 2 overall as long as he can, because that's tied to his job. So they want Zach Wilson to be good. Trust me, they do. They don't want him to fail. They want him to be good because it makes Joe Douglas look that much better. But it has become increasingly obvious that he's not. And if you watch the game on Sunday, again, he threw for 300 yards, but the happy feet in the pocket, he stares down his number one target all the time. And this is the most the phrase I've heard the most on the fan, on national media, on Twitter, and it's true. Zach Wilson makes the easy look hard.
Mm-hmm.
He makes the easy look hard, man. He's got no touch. Every single pass is 90 miles an hour, and he's got to break out of the pocket the second he feels the slightest bit of pressure, and it's just like, just simplify the game, and Mike White has done that, so that's just something I wanted to address. People, in the national media saying, oh, Robert Saleh has failed Zach Wilson. They've done the exact opposite.
Yeah, you can't blame Saleh and Douglas for injuries of players who are awesome picks, right? Or awesome signings. You can't blame him for Breece Hall going down. He changed the whole outlook of this entire team. If Breece Hall doesn't get hurt, we might not even be in Mike White mania right now because this team might have ripped off another win or two. That's the impact that Breece Hall had on this offense, and the Elijah Vera Tucker thing obviously being huge as well. It's crazy because you'd almost rather Zach Wilson, you'd almost feel more comfortable every time he throws the ball downfield, right? Like when he actually breaks the pocket and chucks the ball downfield, you almost feel better, even though it feels like a flash in the pan or it feels like a toss in the air. Like, that is more consistent almost for him than some of the simple stuff. It's really incredibly frustrating. And last thing on that game here, from the defensive side of things here for the Jets, if you take away that incredibly frustrating and just heartbreaking 51-yard pass to Brock Wright, Jared Goff threw for 200 yards. A guy who has been lighting it up, a guy who's putting up insane numbers. And it wasn't like it was crappy weather. Everyone's talking about Jared Goff can't play in the crappy weather. Yeah, it was a little bit chilly. It was sunny. It wasn't very windy. And this Jets team held Jared Goff and this highfalutin Detroit Lions offense to 200 yards passing, and the running attack wasn't that special either. One big one from DeAndre Swift accounted for 50, almost 40% of his yards or something like that, right? So yeah, the defense did their job, the offense did not, but it was something that you unfortunately kind of expected. Even with the ball moving, they could not get in the end zone, and they couldn't get the run game going against a Detroit Lions team that is not good at stopping the run. Their defense is not a great run stopping defense, yet the Jets could not get that going either way. So frustrating for the Jets. We'll talk about some more teams there, but we kind of touched everything there on the Jets. I guess I'll just add this with Trevor Lawrence. Man, if you said this a year ago or before or right after the draft in 2021, in 2022, the Jaguars and Jets will face off in week 16 with both having playoff hopes alive, people would say, oh my God, look at that. The number 1 and number 2 pick worked out. Not the case. Not the case, Pat. And you know what? If you're going to say that they're failing Zach Wilson, what the hell do you say about what the Baltimore Ravens have done to Lamar Jackson? Right? Like, all the Jets have done is given him Garrett Wilson, stud, Elijah Moore, great receiver, 2 tight ends, running backs, offensive linemen. Lamar Jackson thrown to Demarcus Robinson and Devin Duvernay. What?
Who's
right?
now
Like,
out for the rest of the year, I think.
Who's out as well, right? So if Zach Wilson's getting failed by his franchise, what is happening to some of these other teams? What is happening to Daniel Jones? Is he getting absolutely failed? Is he getting flunked? What's worse than an F, right? Richie James, I watched the game on Sunday night. I thought in my head that Richie James had 12 catches. He had 4. He had 4 catches. They were just such big catches because it's such a shock when the Giants can pass the ball 10 yards down the field and complete it, because there's no one who can make a damn play. The Jets have guys who can make plays. Let's not get it twisted over here, man. Gosh, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Oh God. All right, we need to move on from the Jets because that gets you fired up a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. So let's do this. Let's do this. You want to do the quarterback part first? You want to do the teams that are left for dead?
It doesn't matter.
I guess we already started on the Lawrence and the Zach Wilson stuff. So let's talk about some of the quarterbacks here who have something to play for here, who have something to prove. And I kind of want to start here with Geno Smith quickly, because I think it's going to be a quicker one. I'm just curious here what your take is on Geno Smith. They're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Their playoff hopes are dwindling by the second here. They're currently on the outside looking in behind the 2 NFC East Giants and Commanders here. Geno's had a great season, or a very solid season. I don't know what you want to call it exactly here, but they got the Chiefs this week. They got some games coming up after that where it's going to be the Jets, another good defense, and the Rams, who are, they're dead basically here. But Geno Smith, is this story over, Pat? Is this story over, or is there still a puncher's chance for the Seahawks team to right the ship and make the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, dude, they're going downhill quick, and the Metcalf has been putting up some big numbers the last 4 weeks. He went through a little bit of a lull. Lockett, I think, is out this upcoming week already. I think they've ruled him out.
Yes, he's out.
Yeah, if I read that correctly. So he's going to be without Lockett. And look, Kenneth Walker went out, and all of a sudden it looks like this offense looks completely different. So, is it, Geno Smith said, oh, they wrote me off. I didn't write back. Well, maybe, maybe you want to grab your pen, because he's thrown 4 picks now in the last 4 games, right? And at some crucial times. And he's thrown for a ton of yards the last couple of games, but they've been in catch-up mode in basically every single one of these games. And now, with the Giants went into the struggle, the Giants struggled. Washington has now lost and tied the Giants their last 2 games. And Seattle, they're 1-4 in their last 5 after they looked like they were going to be a playoff team. And they've played some tough teams, but I mean, lost to Tampa Bay in Germany. Then off the bye, they blow that game against Vegas. They barely beat Bryce Perkins and the Rams. And then they collapse and they lose against Carolina. I mean, they were down 2 touchdowns right out of the chute. And then they were never really in that game against San Francisco. So, the defense obviously has regressed to the mean. The defense was pretty good the first couple of games. Now they are who we thought they were. But look, I mean, the quarterback's got to overcome these things. Geno Smith throwing 2 picks against the Carolina Panthers and really hurting his team and putting them down in a hole early on and not being able to come back when it was there for them. Geno's got a lot to prove on Sunday. Now, look, I'm not saying that he should be able to beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. They're 9.5-point dogs, but they're 7-7, and they were 6-2 a couple of weeks back. And now it looks like with the Lions being red hot and the Giants beating Washington on Sunday, there's really only one spot for Seattle to get into the playoffs. And if they lose to Kansas City on Sunday, which in all accounts they probably will, they're going to be on the outside looking in. And Geno Smith, I think 5 weeks ago, was in line to, I can't believe I'm saying this, depending on what happens to Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith was in line to be the highest paid quarterback this offseason.
Right.
Unless, he can come back with Seattle, but he's a free agent. And now he's turned the ball over a lot the last couple of weeks, and his team went from being what looked like a team that's going to make the playoffs to anything but now. And they finished the year at Kansas City, New Year's Day at home against the Jets. You want to talk about Bill Simmons, loser leaves town. That might be a loser leaves town game, Seahawks-Jets. And then they finish it. If they're able to win that game, they're probably playing for a playoff spot in the final week against the Rams. So Geno, look, again, I'm not saying he's going to beat the Chiefs, but he's got to be able to not turn the ball over. And then they've got to win those last 2 games of the year against the Jets and the Rams. Otherwise, they're not making it. And then you're asking yourself, if you are the Seahawks who are in rebuild mode, do we want to now pay $30 million, $35 million a year to Geno Smith? So,
right. Which, like, he probably won't get that much money, but still he needs to get a contract at some point, right? He signed 1-year deal after 1-year deal. Everything led to the idea of him not having to do that again. And now we're questioning that, right? We're going to talk about Tua at some point in a little while here. Tua showed up in that loss to the Bills. Geno Smith's going to have games, even if he loses to the Chiefs, where he shows up and puts out some good performances here, because that's where the question marks lie, right? You're not expected to beat the Chiefs, but you have to do something positive, because if you don't and you keep turning the ball over, the Seahawks brass is going to say, man, this was a really good run. It seemed nice, but what are we doing? Are we going to go 7-9 for the rest of our Geno tenure here? Is that our destiny? Right. And then all of a sudden, is he a backup quarterback again? It feels insane to say, but that's actually where his career is at again. So I'm intrigued to see what he does moving forward.
All right. Dude, you said really quickly, you said you don't think he was in line to get that much money. When you consider that Tannehill and Carson Wentz are getting $28, $29 million a year this year, 5 weeks ago, Geno Smith was in line to get a $30 million plus contract. Now, not so much. So he wants that money. He wants the bag, which I love Geno. I wish it would have worked out for him here in New York. He got clobbered in the face by, I forget who the hell that teammate was, who basically got washed out of the NFL that year. That was like the beginning of his downfall. He's had the resurrection year this year. But the last couple of weeks now, he's turning the ball over at the worst possible times. And without Kenneth Walker, he looks like a backup quarterback. So They got Kenneth Walker back. Lockett's going to be out. He needs to be able to hit DK Metcalf a ton, and they've got to be able to sustain drives and finish them off of points.
Yeah, went from a multi-year contract to possibly a stopgap guy yet again. All right, quickly, Taylor Heinecke. I don't think anyone really thinks that highly of Taylor Heinecke. They all like the cut of his jib, if you will, for a lack of a better terms here. But we're not kidding ourselves here, right? Taylor Heinecke's just a stopgap / backup. Is that fair?
Yeah, and as much as I wanted to buy into the hype of XFL quarterback, okay, this guy actually could be a legit starter. I mean, the game against the Giants on Sunday night once again reminded you, yes, he's only a backup. The game against Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, where the defense won it for them in the final drive, reminded you, yeah, he's only a backup quarterback. The fact that he most games can't even break 200 yards. He's done it the last 2 weeks, but I mean, he had a couple where he was like 149 yards, 138 yards. With receivers like Jahan Dotson, who I know was hurt for a little bit, but you got Scary Terry, you got Jahan Dotson, you got Logan Thomas, you got Curtis Samuel. They've got plenty of weapons, not top tier weapons, but they got plenty of weapons to the point where Heinecke, as much as I want to buy into him being a starting quarterback, he's got to perform. And I think that performance on Sunday night, fumbling in a key spot twice, was really an indictment on, again, the reality of who he is as a quarterback in this league.
I got to say this too, as a Giants fan, I was petrified of Brian Robinson, and I'm grateful that they did not pepper him more because he was dominant against the Giants. I mean, I felt like he was getting 8 yards a clip.
And that's how they beat the Eagles, man. And they should have ran the ball like 40 times in that game on Sunday night.
Yeah. Oh, the difference a few weeks makes, man. It's crazy. All right. Last thing on the quarterback front. We'll obviously talk about some other quarterbacks when we get to our next segment, but this game is not a left for dead game for the most part. It could be for the Buccaneers, but Tom Brady, man, what's going on? What's going on with our boy Tom Brady over here? It just seems like he can't put together 4 quarters. I feel like that's been the issue because there's basically a quarter or two every single game where Brady looks like Brady. And then there's a quarter or two every game where we're saying, who is this guy? Why can't this offense score points?
Yeah. And, again, I said it earlier in this podcast, the game against Carolina was one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. And that was because they've been struggling all damn year. That was like the first game where I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, it's not just the offensive line, which everybody likes to throw blame on. I feel like everybody's scared because anytime you think Tom Brady's about to fall off a cliff, Max Kellerman learned that the hard way, right? And then he ended up winning how many more Super Bowls after that,
6 years ago? What was that?
So, but I mean, this is, however you want to factor in the Giselle divorce, how that's playing an effect on his mental, capacity right now, his mindset. I don't think that's as big of a deal as everybody has made it out to be. I think it just comes down to the fact that the offensive line, yes, it isn't that good, but Brady is panicked the second he gets under pressure, and he will just willingly, instead of staying in there for an extra second, knowing that he's probably going to take a hit, but maybe get a guy, on the same page and hit that timing, he just throws it at their feet, and he's killing plays when maybe they don't need to be killed. And so when you can wait an extra second or two, and the offensive line, again, and it's not been good. I'm not saying stay in there and just get clobbered 6-7 times a game like Mike White and then break, have damage to your ribs. But at least, and Bowles has not been a good head coach. I think that's evident once again that he's probably not going to get retained after this year unless they go on a magical run now the next couple weeks. I mean, we've been waiting for it to happen, and you can blame, again, there was blame on Mike Evans for a couple weeks where it's like, oh, it's Mike Evans dropping passes more so than ever in his career. Yeah, there's also a lot of times where Brady has overthrown him, airmailed him. They have not been on the same page this year, and you can't just have it one way without having it the other. They also don't have that much of a run game, but that's the system that they adopted, that Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles adopted when they got Brady is, okay, we're going to throw the ball like 40, 45 times every single week. And when you can't throw the ball successfully, you have no offense. So they actually were doing really well in the first half against Cincinnati because they were going play action, right? They were establishing at least somewhat of a running game. And then Brady, I think they ran play action like 9, 10, 11 times in the first half. I saw a stat on Twitter. And they were gashing Cincinnati, and they played probably their best first half of the entire season. And then I don't know what the hell happened in the second half. They stopped running the ball earlier. They were throwing the ball on first down with a lot of success, but they stopped running the ball successfully. And when you do that, the play action isn't effective. And then that third quarter, I mean, again, that's literally like all Brady. Fumbles the ball going down on a sack, botches. He literally like fumbled the ball out of his hand going to hand it off to Fournette, and then just threw a terrible interception and threw two picks in the game. So, dude, I would love to say that Brady's going to turn it around. And I've been betting Tampa Bay like almost every week and losing every single week on them. So I want it to happen more than anybody, right? I don't want to see – I hate seeing legends and goats of the game fade into irrelevancy because it's one of the toughest things as a sports fan to watch, right? It's tough to see LeBron James decline this year. It's tough to see Tom Brady decline this year. So you want them to have their swan song like Leo Messi did in the World Cup. But I just don't know if that's going to happen for Brady because I've been waiting for this offense to flip the switch for the entire year now, and it hasn't happened. So I don't know what's going to change over the final 3 weeks other than the fact that the division is so bad that they're probably going to get into the playoffs, and then they can fool us all if they put it together for 1 week and they can beat the fraudulent Cowboys and, maybe set themselves up for a run. I still think that's possible, but again, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't make the playoffs. I think it could be that bad.
Well, that was going to be my question, right? Because it's not about Brady having something to prove, right? Brady has nothing to prove. He can retire tomorrow, and we could all say, thank you for everything you've done for us as sports fans. So he doesn't have anything to prove. But as far as this year, the Bucs have something to prove, and he's obviously at the helm of that. If you want to back the Bucs into the end of the season and into the playoffs, then yes, there is something to prove for this team. And right now, I'm looking at DraftKings minus 360 to win the division. And the Carolina Panthers 1 game back plus 500 currently holding the tiebreak with 1 game remaining. So here we go. Buccaneers have the Cardinals on Christmas Day at night. That's the 8:00 game on Christmas night. Then they have the Panthers in week 17, followed by the Falcons in week 18. The Panthers on the flip side have the Lions on Christmas Eve, the Bucs the following week, like I mentioned, and the Saints. What are the odds here, Pat? Is it worth a sprinkle on the plus 500 Carolina Panthers to win this division? It sounds like you might consider throwing a small shekel on it.
Well, dude, if you think they're going to beat them again and they crushed them 21-3 when they played them the last time, if you think they're going to beat them again, those odds are going to be the exact opposite if Carolina does indeed beat them. So forget, the minus 360 and saying, oh, wow, the odds are so Tampa Bay can't blow this division, right? If they lose to Carolina, that's it.
Right.
That's it.
Unless the Panthers obviously lose the other two, of course.
Yeah, but for the most part, what makes you think that Tampa Bay is going to win both at Arizona and at Atlanta? Right? They both seem like on paper going into the year, you're like, all right, those are 2 easy W's, especially against the Atlanta Falcons.
Right.
And now that there's no Kyler Murray, you're like, oh, that's an easy W. Dude, I mean, they're a mediocre team. They are a bad football team.
Yeah.
They are 1-3 in their last 4, and that only win was a miracle in the last 2 minutes against New Orleans. They should be on a 4-game losing streak.
Right.
And that's coming off the bye. That was coming off the bye in their game in Germany against Seattle. And they have then now been one of the worst football teams since their bye week, which is inexplicable.
Yeah. And to this moment right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 52%. 53%. Sorry, it's gone up just a touch. 53% success rate once reaching the red zone, which is just so un-Tom Brady-like that it's hard to fathom. But that is where we are. So we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, again, just really quickly, Pete. Let's say they lose to Carolina and they win at Arizona and they win at Atlanta. The Bucs are 8-9. So Carolina, then, if they win that game against Tampa Bay, they're currently 5-8. That gets them at 6-8. Or excuse me, they're currently 5-9. That win against Tampa Bay gets them to 6-9. They would have to win out. Yeah, so they would have to beat
Panthers
Detroit.
hold their own destiny right now.
They do hold their own destiny. All they have to do is finish with the same record if they beat Tampa Bay again, but they would essentially need to win out. If they lose against Detroit, then they need Brady to they need to beat Brady on New Year's Day, and they need the Bucs to lose against Arizona or Atlanta just to have a chance.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. It definitely is. And I mean, hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for chaos, as we always are on Subway Sports Talk. We're here for the chaos of the NFL. And let's continue to talk more about that chaos. Subway Sports Talk, Pete Kennedy, Pat Boyle. Let's do one more segment here, Pat. Teams that are left for dead. Teams that if they don't get it together right now in week 16, their season is basically over. There are a couple teams that we got to talk about here. And it's tough to start with this one because it's on Sunday. It's not one of the Saturday games, but I don't care. It is the most interesting to me. Right now, we have the Green Bay Packers at the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. We obviously have talked much about Tua and the Dolphins this year. We haven't spoken much about the Green Bay Packers, probably since much earlier in the season. However, Packers are at 6-8. They're behind only the Lions, Seahawks, Commanders for that playoff spot. Packers at Dolphins, man, they're maybe figuring it out a little bit. Are the Green Bay Packers? Christian Watson becoming that threat that Aaron Rodgers needed. AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones starting to figure it out a little bit. The defense is all right in Green Bay, but the Dolphins did prove something. They did show up. They showed those big balls that we didn't know that they definitely had against Buffalo on Saturday last week. Pat, what's your take on this game? Currently, the line sitting at Dolphins -4, but this one feels like it's the end for the Packers if they can't. Well, it is the end for the Packers if they can't win it, but it also feels incredibly important for the Dolphins to win because if they lose this one, the Jets, the Patriots, the Jaguars, all on their ass.
Yeah, I think Miami has the chance to effectively close the door on the outsiders, preying on their downfall. If they can beat Green Bay on Christmas Day, right? They'll be 9-6. They will essentially be in the playoffs unless they, lose the final two games of the regular season, and even then, the other teams, would have to basically win out. So Miami can, really take a big sigh of relief if they beat Green Bay on Sunday. But, you look at these two teams stylistically, Pete, and Green Bay matches up pretty well with them. They've got a top 5 passing defense. They only give up, I think it's now less than 200 yards a game through the air when you factor in the game on Monday against Baker and the Rams. And Miami, for the most part this year, hasn't been able to run the ball. They're a pass first. It's Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle. But they ran the shit out of the ball against Buffalo on back on Saturday night. If they run the ball like that, they ran for 188 yards on the ground. I'd have to go back and check, but I got to say I would guess that is by far their most this season. Yes. They got Mostert looking like Mostert in the NFC Championship game with the Niners a couple of years back. Salvon Ahmed had a touchdown, ran the ball really well. 25 carries as a team for 188 yards. If they can run the ball with Mostert like that and get creative in the run game, they'll be able to beat the Packers, and that'll be it for Aaron Rodgers. We'll see if he's going to come back next year. And like I said, that'll be a huge sigh of relief for Miami. Green Bay absolutely has to win out. They have to beat the Lions. They have to beat the Vikings, and they still, even then, need some help. But yeah, this is a huge game for both of these teams. I wish that this was going to be in prime time, Christmas night in Miami. I think I'd rather that than what we're going to get with Brady and the Bucks against Arizona. Especially because the Knicks are on at 12 on Christmas Day. So that's going to be tough having to flip back and forth between the Knicks and the Dolphins. And I don't know about you and your family, but my family, we usually don't start opening presents until about like 11:30 because everybody's always up late as hell the night before. So like we're only usually get done around 12:30, 1 o'clock. So then to just go right into all of a sudden Knicks and then the Dolphins and the Packers, that's going to be a lot. But big game. I got to give props to Tua for the way he played on Saturday night because it looked like, my prophecy was coming true, the demise of Tua in this offense. And then in the cold, harsh weather in Buffalo, hostile territory, he showed up. And I don't know why the hell they were running press man coverage on Tyreek Hill and not pressing him and not jamming him at the line of scrimmage. But give Tua a lot of credit. He had to make some throws. He had to drop some dimes in, and he did. So he performed really well. And Green Bay feels like they're a little frisky now. They've won 2 in a row. You sandwich the bye in between. That should be the best game that we see on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that game. And all the AJ Dillon fantasy owners out there who definitely did not make the playoffs because he was a disaster this year, right? Like if you had AJ Dillon and you actually relied on him in fantasy, like I did, unfortunately, in 2 leagues, like, you were disappointed. And now you're watching this man rip off 15-yard runs, score touchdowns, and you're like, what the hell, bro? Where was this the entire year? We've known this since week 1 that their strength was Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. Why are we not peppering those 2 players constantly? And it seemed like one of those ruts that a team falls into where, it just kind of gets away from you too quickly. It's almost like a team in the NBA that they go down by 12 in the first quarter. So they decide to just start chucking threes, right? Like that's kind of what the Packers season has felt like this year. They went down early with a couple bad losses. All of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers is chucking up interceptions. I saw the statistic on the game that was on the other night. He threw 10 interceptions this year. That's his most since 2010. It's been over a decade since he's thrown double-digit interceptions, and that, to me, feels like the season just got away from them, and there is other realms of this universe where this Packers season looks entirely different based off an outcome that changed a little bit here, a little bit there, right? Like, some of these tough losses, like they lose to the Giants, they lose to the Jets, they lose to the Commanders. Like these games that you think Aaron Rodgers and the Packers should win, if you replay this season over and they lean on their strengths of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, where's this team at? Are they currently an 8-win team and not a 6-win team? That's the difference of them now looking on the outside into the playoffs here. And you're right, they're frisky. If I'm Chris Muley, one of our friends of the show here, I'm nervous about this Christmas Day game against the Packers because they're playing with house money now too. They have nothing to lose. But with all that being said, if you're a Dolphins supporter, if you're a Dolphins fan, you have to feel incredibly good about your head coach and about the toughness of your team and your quarterback right now, Pat. I don't want to, repeat everything you just said, but they really showed up on Saturday, and no real fan wants to hear about a moral victory, but that was a moral victory in my eyes. And I think that can lead them to a multitude of success. The fact that they ran the ball like that, we didn't think that was possible. We didn't think they had that in them to be that physical up front and get it done against a really good Buffalo Bills defense. So this is a matchup that is probably the game of the week if you really think about it. If you think about all the games here, and we could talk about a couple more before we say goodbye here, that might be the best matchup of the entire week. You can talk Giants, Vikings. You can talk about, the Bengals Patriots having a good bit of playoff implications here, but I don't see a better game on this slate outside of Packers Dolphins.
No, I agree, man. I agree. And you talk about, to finish your point on Rodgers too, the season got away from them. And that you perfectly said that. And we knew it was going to be tough to get the chemistry with Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. And Romeo Dobbs getting hurt for the last 5-6 weeks. He came back on Monday, was huge. But him getting hurt was a big blow to this team. And it was like, okay, well, after that week one where Watson drops the wide open pass, it's like, he got phased out by Rodgers for a couple of weeks. And it felt like it was like, all right, we'll give a couple weeks. They'll, Watson will get the chemistry going with Rodgers will get the chemistry going with Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. They'll run the ball effectively, and this team will be fine. And then Matt LaFleur said, "Yeah, watch this. We're not going to run the ball with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, and we're going to do the exact opposite of what we should be doing to be successful." And as much as you want to blast young receivers for not being that good yet, you got to blast Aaron Rodgers for not doing whatever it takes to get that chemistry with these receivers. And there was an article that came out in The Athletic where people were crushing Aaron Rodgers for, you saw that hand signal. I think it was late in the game where he wanted Watson to just kind of go right out in the flat and throw the ball to him right away. And Watson didn't do it. And you had an article that came out like 2 days before that about how Rodgers has like these secret hand signals that they don't actually teach, but the receivers should know. And then McAfee asked it to him, and he goes, "Yeah, it was like a nothing burger." It was like, okay, but was it though? Because there was like multiple former Packer players that were quoted in the articles. So, a lot of this goes on Aaron Rodgers and everything, the ayahuasca, the mushroom trips, and was he going to come back? Was he not going to come back? That really delayed, I think, their ability to get going in training camp so that these lulls, that 5-game losing streak that ultimately probably ends their season didn't happen. Right? That 15-9 loss against Detroit shouldn't have happened. Blowing that game against the Giants in London shouldn't have happened. We should be talking about the Packers once again, being able to make a deep run into the playoffs as long as Rodgers is playing, and it's not. And he has to be crushed for that this year, just as much as you want to crush LaFleur or the run game or anything else.
Yeah, because I'm talking about 2 games to switch up their playoff outlooks here. It's really just one. If they win one of those 5 games, and the 3 that stick out are the Giants, Jets, Commanders back to back to back, one of those games, and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs right now. For a season that feels dismal and feels like such an embarrassment for the Packers, they're literally one of those games away from being in the playoffs, and yet they're still not dead yet. They have a chance. They need some help. They need the Seahawks and Lions to go down. They need the Commanders to go down, but they're in range here still at 6-8. So this game on Sunday, obviously being the biggest game of their season. And I would definitely do mushrooms with Aaron Rodgers. Wait,
Oh.
what? Wait, what?
Wait, what'd you say?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
some
I honestly probably would too. Although I don't know. Rodgers seems like if he likes you, he's like one of the best guys to hang out with, but he's got that smug, arrogant
Yep.
prickness to him that if he doesn't like you, it seems like you're never going to get along with him. And it's just like the guy that you have to work with, and you show up and you see him and you just go, oh, this fucking
Well, you
guy again.
no, it's the guy it's not even that. It's the guy you can't get a read on. It's a guy that you have that one conversation while you're heating up your lunch one day, and you're like, I think me and Aaron are figuring it out. We're turning a corner here. We're becoming friendly, office acquaintances, And then all of a sudden you pop by his desk. Hey, Aaron, who you starting in fantasy this week? And he's just like, yeah. And you're like, what happened? I thought we were cool, man. Like, that's what it is for Aaron Rodgers. It's a give and take. It's very, very strange. But all right, a couple more things to point out here. Left for dead teams. There's a couple of AFC teams here, Pat, that I want to bring up. You got a slew of 6 and 8 teams. We talked about the Jaguars already. We got the Raiders, the Browns, and the Steelers. The Raiders and Steelers playing one another, and the Browns, obviously, they all still have a chance. Technically, they need a whole lot of help. But what team is being left for dead this week particular? Is it the Raiders? Is it the Steelers? Or perhaps your old team, the Brownies?
I think for sure it's the Steelers, right? I think now that, and again, let's revisit my preseason pick of saying that the Raiders are going to win the AFC West, right? And how if they didn't start out 1-4, and if they haven't blown 5 double-digit leads this year,
Oh, God.
they're probably in very good position, like 8-6, 9-5, right in the mix, right in the heat of things, as being one of the best, a 3, 4, 5 seed in the AFC, but whatever. That's what happened. Josh McDaniels is a loser, and there you go. But that being said, they've won 4 out of 5, right? They're 4-1. The only loss was the collapse against the Rams. They should be have a 5-game winning streak, so they feel like they're playing really good football right now. And with the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, I think is most likely coming back to play that game on Saturday, but it feels like the Steelers have kind of just been in like the background of the NFL this year. Like, yeah, you're not going to be that good. Tomlin will maybe find a way to keep you close to 500 this year, like he does every year. But, here we are again. The Steelers win this game. They're 7-8, and they still have a chance. They're still in the hunt. Whoever loses this game, they're done. Right. I think we can both agree on that. Whoever loses and goes to 6-9, there's zero shot you're making the playoffs. And again, it feels like the Raiders, they have the tiebreak over Cleveland, based on winning percentage in conference games. So if the Raiders win this game, they're at 7-8. They still have a shot. So it feels like the Steelers are being left for dead. And yet, as we sit here, Pete, on Tuesday night, about to hit midnight on Wednesday, would you believe me if I told you the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-point favorites?
No, I would not actually. Is that true?
The Pittsburgh Steelers are
Oh my
3
God.
point
Who's out? Is somebody out?
favorites.
Who's out for the Raiders?
I honestly don't know. I literally just saw that as I said it to you, and I couldn't believe what I was saying. Now, here's the thing. Deontay Johnson is questionable. Najee Harris is questionable. Kenny Pickett, although he is expected to play, I believe, on Saturday,
Yeah.
is officially questionable. Now, all 3 of those guys could play. But, outside of that, the Steelers defense has been playing really well, since TJ Watt came back. Again, it's the game against Carolina. He now has a sack or more in the last 2 games. It feels like he's getting back in rhythm. The Steelers defense is playing how we thought. But yeah, I don't know, dude. I'm trying to see here for Vegas. Nobody that I see right now is hurt. They've got a couple questionables on the defensive side of the football, and the offensive line has been a suspect at times this year, but that doesn't make sense to me. The Steelers are 3-point favorites.
Here's one thing. So I saw this tweet from Field Yates earlier, and it's something to really note for anyone who plays fantasy or is gambling on Saturday. It is going to be frigid in the Northeast and even beyond into the Midwest on Saturday. So here are some of the temperatures that it's going to be feels like at kickoff for some of these games Saturdays. At the Bears, Bills at Bears, -11 feels like. Seahawks at Chiefs, -6, right? On and on. Saints at Browns, -9. Texans at Titans, 5 degrees. Falcons at Ravens, 7 degrees. And here it is. Raiders at Steelers feels like -4 degrees. Is that enough for a 3-point spread for the Steelers' favor?
Oh my
Feels
God.
fishy, my friend. It feels fishy, my friend. I will say that very much. Right now, I'm seeing 62% of the bets on the Raiders, 75% of the cash. So maybe it's a sharp play. I don't know, man. It feels sketchy as hell.
Yeah, I'm seeing a high of 13, winds 15 to 25 miles an hour, occasionally gust over 40 miles an hour.
It's gonna be a
Um,
disaster on
that
Christmas.
being said, the Raiders have Josh Jacobs, right? It feels like they're a team that can kind of withstand a game that has no passing attack, right? If they run the ball, like we've seen Josh Jacobs run the ball at times. And meanwhile, Pittsburgh, you don't know what the hell you're getting out of Najee Harris on a week-to-week basis. And I don't know. I mean, right? Like the Steelers defense is really, really good. They've been playing good. They don't get enough credit. But I mean, again, enough to make them 3-point favorites? I don't
Very
know about
sketchy.
that one, man. That is.
Very sketchy. Very, very sketchy.
And
And
that's going
with
to be a game, too, where you're probably not seeing a ton on red zone, but it's going to be one of the biggest games in determining who's still in the hunt after Saturday and Sunday.
very, very sketchy. That's the Saturday night game, actually. That's the night game on Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Wow.
you're right. That is 8:50. Yeah, 8:15 NFL Network. So wow. So it's gonna be super cold, dude.
What a mess. Oh my God. Happy Christmas, everybody. And with all that being said, the Browns at 6-8 are 2.5-point favorites home against the Saints, who, with all the scenarios we just laid out for Pittsburgh and Vegas, the Browns are right there. Right now, granted, this is the problem for all of these teams right now. The Jets and Jaguars play each other, and they're all technically ahead. So one of the teams of the Jets and Jaguars is going to stay ahead of those other teams, and the Patriots likely to lose against the Bengals, as we'd all guess, even though that spread's only 3.5 in the Bengals' favor. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's gonna be wacky. It's gonna be weird. And at the end of the day, we can talk about all these scenarios. The most likely scenario is the Chargers and Dolphins hold on to those final 2 wild card spots. So that's pretty much it. I mean, with all that being said about the teams that are left for dead, it seems like it's going to be Dolphins Chargers in the playoffs for the AFC, which feels correct. Let me add that. It
So you're
feels like
leaving you're leaving a lot of teams for dead right now.
I'm leaving them all for dead. I'm leaving them all for dead unless the Packers beat the Dolphins this weekend. I think all of those teams are for dead. I think it's going to be Chargers and Fins in the playoffs.
What if the Jets win on Thursday?
It's still up to the Packers. It's still up to the Packers. I really think that, because who do the Jets have in the final 2 weeks? They have the Dolphins again, right?
Patriots and Dolphins. No, not
Yeah.
Patriots and Dolphins. They play Seahawks and Dolphins.
Seahawks and Dolphins. Yeah. So the Dolphins control their old destiny, man. I don't know. I think all
Yeah.
those teams are left for dead.
And you think, are you sold on the Chargers now? I know that was a talking point for you in terms of betting them, and I know they play Monday night at Indianapolis, and you think after we just saw them blow a 33-0 lead that this team is totally done and totally dead and has no motivation. But are you thinking who is the safer bet for you to make the playoffs out of those two, Chargers, Dolphins?
The Chargers are a safer bet to make the playoffs, but the Chargers are never a safer bet to bet on in an individual week. I'll tell you right now, 4-point favorite against the Colts. I guarantee that I'm taking the Chargers in some way or another, and but I will not take them -4, because can we all not just imagine the Chargers playing a good game and then the Colts coming back and it being tied and the Chargers having to win on a field goal? Who's shocked? Who's shocked if the Chargers win by 3?
It happened again. It happened literally again on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Tannehill goes out for like an entire quarter. They score on the first drive. They're up 7-0, and they don't score again until the fourth quarter,
Yeah.
or however long it was, and then they have to kick a field goal in the final minute to win the game.
So yeah, I trust the Chargers about as far as I can throw them, and I can't throw them -4. I can't throw them that far. I can't.
I can't throw them -4 yards.
I can't throw them that far. It's impossible. They're too heavy. I don't know why. They can't do it. So yeah, I
Oh
don't know.
boy. Yeah,
trust
I
them in the
mean,
playoff stuff.
look, any team that has 6 wins right now, you got to think you still have a puncher's chance.
Yeah, crazier things have happened.
So yeah, again, loser of Raiders Steelers is done. The Browns are playing the Saints. They obviously have to win or they're done. And then loser of Jets Jaguars, you would think is also done. Even if it's the Jaguars, They're 7-8. Jets fall to 7-8. It would feel like the Jets are absolutely done.
Right.
And it would still kind of feel like the Jaguars still have a little bit of a chance just because of the
Well,
momentum. But
the
if the
Jaguars can also win the division. The
yeah,
Jaguars
that's the
can
thing.
win the
Yeah, they can
division,
win their division because they're only a game behind Tennessee right now,
and
and they have the
Tennessee's
tiebreak over them. I think they play each other last week too. That's
yeah,
going to be one hell of a game. Unless the Jets beat the Jaguars on Thursday, then you would say, okay, they're probably done.
right.
Jets are right back into the mix. Man,
Football, baby. I'm here for the Jaguars to win the division. I'm not rooting for them on Thursday in one way or another until I pick a side on Thursday night. But yeah, I'm rooting for the Jaguars over the Titans. I'm done with the Titans. I don't care about them.
and what's the chances that the Patriots get it together after their collapse on Sunday and beat the Bengals?
Stupid. It'll be so dumb. Such a dumb, stupid game because of the way that they lost on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day it was. What day was it? Did they lose?
Sunday.
Sunday. I don't know what day it is anymore. The way that they lost, nobody in America wants to bet on the Patriots right now. Nobody. Why would you? They're pathetic to watch on offense. Their defense isn't that good. And yet, like, now I'm questioning it because it's 3.5 points. Right now, I'm seeing a huge spread of money on the Bengals, which makes sense to me, but it's sketchy. It scares me. That should be a 5.5 point spread or 6 point spread. Why is it 3.5? The Bengals defense has been electric in second halves of football games, not letting some of the best offenses in the league even get an inch. And yet the Patriots, they're only 3.5 point favorites. Sketchy. I don't know. What am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that?
Sketchy.
God damn it. All right. Last thing. We got to go. This always happens. But Giants at Vikings, 3.5 point favorites are the Vikings. Obviously off the greatest comeback in NFL history, which we actually didn't even really talk about for more than a couple minutes. But Vikings 11-3, not playing for that much because they're not really in it for the 1 seed right now. 2 games back on Philly. They're not really fighting for their division. They already clinched that. So what does this mean for the Giants at the Vikings -3.5?
Giants 1000% are in the playoffs if they win this game. And then I can't believe I'm saying this, Pete. We're actually having a conversation. Well, one, it's going to be once again the Vikings are frauds, right? Even though the Giants are right now, they're a playoff team, they're 8-5-1. We know what the defense has done this year, even despite all the injuries and how bad they looked the last couple of weeks. Daniel Jones has proven he's going to be the quarterback going forward. Saquon, that fourth quarter he had, putting that game away against Washington was absurd. There's a couple of spin moves he ripped off at full speed. My God, he's having a tremendous year. And he pulled himself out of a little mini slump because teams were just stacking the box against him. It's going to say, once again, everybody's going to say, all right, the Vikings are once again frauds, and that was a miracle comeback, and, now they should have lost 3 in a row. But flip side, if the Giants win that game in Minnesota, can you hear yourself thinking the Giants could actually pull off an upset in the first, maybe even the second round and get to the NFC Championship game? Could you hear that if the Giants win on Sunday in Minnesota or no?
I don't know. I don't think I could. Let's see. I mean, they would most likely
because here's the thing. Right now, the season ended today. We didn't play these games this week. They're playing San Francisco on the road first week, and you think there's absolutely no shot they're scoring even double-digit points against that defense.
right.
But if the Giants beat Minnesota and
They would
the
flip.
49ers propel themselves ahead of the Vikings, you could be looking at a rematch, Giants-Vikings first
Then there's
round
a
of the
chance.
playoffs.
There's a chance. And then after that, Pat, I forget how the bracket will work there. I believe the Giants Vikings winner would play the winner of Dallas Tampa, if this is correct here. Right? Or does it reseed in the NFL? I
They
forget.
reseed.
So it wouldn't matter, perhaps.
So if the Giants get the 6 and the Vikings are the
stressed out.
3, the Giants win. If they're the 6 seed, unless the 7 seed also wins, the Giants would then be going into Philadelphia.
Right. So then it's over. See you later. They can't beat the Eagles. But it would be great. It'd be great if they can get the Vikings in the first round. Because I think that's a beatable team. I think the Vikings are good. I think they're beatable and good. Those two things can exist at the same time. I don't think they're frauds. I don't think they're trash. I think that was all overblown. And shout out to Cody O'Connor and myself, who, with the Vikings down by 16 points or 17 points, whatever the hell it was, bet on them plus 3.5 live, plus 7.5 live, plus 250 live. The only thing I wish is that I kept hammering it, because I got scared, obviously, when they went down by like 24 or whatever. I didn't keep betting it because I was like, all right, well, that was stupid. No, it wasn't. They had a chance and they came back and won. Vikings do not suck. They're not frauds. They may just not be world beaters. I think those things can be okay.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is terrible, right? The defense is absolutely terrible. And the defense wasn't even that much to blame on
No, the Colts
Saturday.
team is shit. I agree.
Cousins threw a pick six. They had a
Yeah.
punt blocked for a touchdown. They turned the ball over on downs inside their own 30. The defense didn't even play that poorly, but they've given up 414 yards a game this year. The secondary's been a sieve. So it feels like any team on any day can beat them. Whereas you want to be saying about a team, they can beat anybody on any given day.
And I was thinking, I think I said it in the group chat. I was like, it feels like the Colts haven't done anything, right? And I think Patrick Peterson went on his whole rant saying, like, if you think about it, the Colts didn't do much. It was a really weird, ugly game, like you just explained. So yeah, let's go Vikings. Come on, let's go. I don't know. I'm here for the Vikings. Justin Jefferson's the
Minnesota Kennedys. That's our betting shared Discord that we share our bets in. That's what we call it, because you were a Viking guy, and I said it, dude. I said it earlier this year. I was like, you know what, Pete? I'm like one Vikings win away from jumping all on the train, and that was the week before they beat Buffalo.
Yes.
They got to 7-1. I was like, if they take care of Washington on the road and go to 7-1, I'll be ready to say that the Vikings are Super Bowl contenders. And then they go in and they beat Buffalo. And since then, they got crushed by Dallas. They got crushed basically by Detroit. They were never really in that game. And then they should have lost to Indianapolis. So,
So who are they? I don't know.
Who are they if they didn't beat the Buffalo Bills too?
Sketchy.
That's the word of the podcast.
Sketchy. Oh man, Pat, this was great. Great episode as always. I love talking sports with you, man. It's always a pleasure. So
nobody better, Petey. Nobody better than you.
You have any more plugs? Any more shifts? Fan hosting this weekend coming up?
No, a lot of producing. The morning show on CBS Sports Network. DA show. No hosting right now in the works over the next week or two, but we'll see. I appreciate you always asking.
Will you be there Friday morning?
This Friday?
Yeah,
I will.
See you there.
Be working on the DA show once again, so I will see you there.
Filling in for our old friend Emmanuel Barberi on the overnight into Thursday into Friday. So I shall see you on Friday morning.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, that's right. All right. That's it. Subway Sports Talk. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you didn't listen to the Knicks pod, if you're on YouTube here, check out the Knicks video on YouTube. If you're on podcast app, you already heard it. So thank you for staying with us for this hour-long episode, hour plus, whatever the hell it is. And we appreciate you. Picks pod coming later in the week. Christmas week. Very exciting. A lot of good games. Cannot wait. We'll keep it going right here on Subway Sports Talk. For Pat Boyle, I'm Pete Kennedy. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.